The pride, passion, and pageantry of college football lives here. This is the Paul Finebaum Show, Hour 4 podcast.
We welcome you back. Great to have you on. And certainly last Thursday when the NCAA finally moved the goal line on the name, image, and likeness debate, one name kept coming up over and over again. He is Jeremy Bloom, who many years ago was an Olympic skier and also an outstanding wide receiver and return man for the University of Colorado. He took on the NCAA. It cost him years of eligibility, and maybe too late to claim too much other than the fact that he opened the door for so many others. But he joins us now. Jeremy, thank you for your time. Appreciate it very, very much.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I know last Thursday had to be bittersweet in many ways. The door's now open, and you've certainly made a very successful career since all this went on. But what were your thoughts when the news finally was made official of what we already knew, that the NCAA was moving forward on the NIL?
Yeah, I think the first feeling was vindication. You know, I've been part of this 2-decade fight for student athletes' rights. I've never gone anywhere, and I've worked with countless number of organizations and lawyers along the way to offer guidance or support. So, yeah, it felt like it was some vindication that the NCAA, told me I couldn't be an Olympic skier and an amateur football player. The hypocrisy in that is, at the time, they allowed guys like Drew Henson to be a professional baseball player and an amateur football at Michigan. So, it never made sense to me. It also never made sense that, these are human beings, right? So who owns the name, image, and likeness? Is it the university or the NCAA, or is it these kids? Is it these humans? And I think when you break it down to a civil rights level, it's pretty obvious that, we all own our name, image, and likeness. Nobody else owns that. Not in this country, maybe somewhere else. So the whole idea, notion, of amateurism never made sense to me.
When you go back to that time in your life, you're still relatively young, but you had so many things going for you, and then you took on this fight. Describe what it was like to be in this storm at that time.
It was really scary. I was 19 years old. Before I went to college, my senior year of high school, I competed in the Olympics for the United States. I ended that season as the number 1 ranked freestyle skier in the world, and all I wanted to do was not have the attention, and I just wanted to go in as a freshman and see if I could even play at this level. Lots to prove, right, as a freshman coming in, especially with the spotlight that I did, and unfortunately the NCAA forced my hand to sue them in court, and so that brought a big spotlight. And look, it was scary. It was scary the first time I saw Jeremy Bloom versus the National Collegiate Athletic Association. That's just not something that, you're prepared for as a as a 19-year-old.
No, and I don't want to describe what it was like for you, but at the time, there were advocates, there were supporters, but it was nothing like it is today when almost everyone agrees how idiotic the NCAA has been. Back then, it was probably a far more difficult road.
It was, absolutely. Through the last, I guess it was, 18 years, there's been a lot of progress. There was progress in my lawsuit because the judge determined that student athletes actually were a third-party beneficiary of the contract, which actually gave rights to student athletes. And then Ed O'Bannon carried that on in his fight and ultimately won. And then really the breaking point to all of this that really forced the NCAA hand, they didn't have a choice, were the state senators from California that passed in the state of California that universities could not limit the opportunities of student athletes and that the name, image, and likeness were owned by those individuals. And Colorado was next and Florida was next. There was all kinds of, sweeping legislation coming. And so the NCAA had to do this.
There was always a feeling, dating 20, 30 years even before your battle, Jeremy, that you couldn't beat the NCAA, although they had a rather spotty record at times in court, but they were just such an authoritative, if not autocratic, state. What pushed you over the line to go ahead and take them on?
Well, to your point, there was this archaic Supreme Court ruling back in, I want to say, the 70s that found that the NCAA was what's called a non-state actor, which means they don't have to adhere to the policies and principles of other companies and other organizations, most other companies and organizations. And that gave them the ability to operate with no due process. And so they are the judge, the jury, the executioner. And that's why, to your point, that most people thought that they were untouchable. I never thought that they were untouchable. I always thought there's two ways to get fundamental change or force fundamental change inside the NCAA. The first way is through the college presidents, because that's really who the NCAA is. Yes, they have employees and, Miles Brand back in the day, but it's really the NCAA presidents that control the direction of the NCAA, or it was going to happen at the state or federal level. That was really the only two areas at which could evoke, transformational change. And, as it turns out, it happened at the state government level.
Jeremy, you've heard it all, and we hear it all, and everyone hears the downside of it. But you've eloquently described the likeness belongs to you. When you hear the criticisms, and you've heard it now for 20 years, how do you deal with that, and quite frankly, process it?
Yeah, there's two big pushbacks from otherwise, highly intelligent, great people. Number one is this philosophy that people really like amateur athletes, this idea that they're doing it for the pure love of the sport. And I get that. I understand that. I can see where they're coming from. But the reason that the state senators were able to get this approved was because it became a civil rights issue. And let's just say, pales into comparison of the civil rights issues of the past, without a doubt, much lower level, but still a civil rights issue that, look, at the end of the day, those 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 21, that's their name, that's their likeness, that's their ability. It is not the NCAA's. It is not the universities. And so I always ask those people, well, where do you work? And would you work for free? And would you want your name, image, and likeness owned by your company? And most of the time, the answer is no. The second big argument is the recruiting advantage argument. So people say, hey, now that, universities, boosters, or whatever can, in theory, pay student athletes, which I don't think the NCAA is going to allow that, but let's say they did, then the big money schools would have a recruiting advantage. And by the way, that's true, definitely true. But a level playing field, recruiting playing field across the country has never existed. And you can break that into two parts. One, the success of the school, right? There's a reason SEC schools have a recruiting advantage over schools that don't have the bigger budgets. They have the best uniforms, they have the best locker rooms, they win national championships, they have the best coaches. And then, you can also break it down academically. Stanford has an academic recruiting advantage over a school like Michigan State, not to pick on Michigan State, but the average salary of a graduate from Michigan State is $50,000. The average salary of a graduate from Stanford is $80,000. And if you scale that over a 40-year career, it means your earning potential is over $1 million more if you graduate from Stanford than if you graduate from Michigan State. So the idea that there's like this level playing field of recruiting is just crazy to me, because it's never existed that way.
In terms of what you think it's finally going to mean, I know the debate rages on, and the NCAA never really tells us very much. But when we finally get to that point, what do you think it's going to look like?
Yeah, my biggest fear, and the state senators that I'm in touch with on a regular basis on this topic, I make sure that they're aware of this. The NCAA they're masterminds at disarming public pressure when they really need to, by coming out with a broad statement like they did on Thursday and saying, hey, we're going to allow, name, image, likeness, and then creating restrictions, bylaws as they call them, around how and why and where a student athlete could take advantage of this. And my fear is that it's going to be so restrictive and ridiculous that very few people are going to be able to take part in it. But I don't think that's going to happen because these state senators are watching closely. And if they don't, we live in a free market economy. We live with capitalism. The market sets our price, and that's just the way it is for all of us. And it shouldn't change for student athletes. Whatever the market dictates that they could make with a Nike contract or whatever, they should be able to get. And by the way, it's not just the big money sports. It's also the female soccer player who could get paid $250 to sign autographs at the car dealership. $250 is a lot of money when you're a college student. I think we can all think back to when we were college students. So, ultimately, I think everybody can benefit from this. It's just going to be really important that the NCAA doesn't make it overly restrictive.
Jeremy, finally, I've been on programs where well-known players have all sided with the students of today. What was it like when you were 19? I remember it, but I don't quite remember as many people standing up to help you out.
I felt an overwhelmingly amount of support for my situation. But my situation was a bit different than what's happening today. My situation was I wanted to get paid from a completely different sport that I was not competing on in the NCAA. And there was already precedent that the NCAA allowed that. So the outcry was really about that. It was less about the idea of me making money as a football player, which is really the crux of the issue today. Back then, the majority of people would say, I don't think, student athletes should not be able to make money based off the sport they're playing. And you've seen a big adoption curve over the last 18 years that where most people now says, no, if that's their ability, that's their name, that's their likeness, that's their name on the back of the jersey that they're selling in the stores. They own that. Nobody else does. Not everybody. I get there's people out there that don't want to see change. I understand that. But I found that the majority has turned that corner now.
Amazing story. And the person that started it all, Jeremy Bloom. Jeremy, many, many thanks. Great to have you on. It was such a pleasure for all of us to hear your story.
It's my pleasure, guys. Appreciate you having me, and thanks for highlighting the topic. Have a great day.
You got it. Thank you. Jeremy Bloom, he started it all as a 19-year-old, and here we are. We'll take your phone calls after this at 855-242-7285.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
We welcome you back to the program, and it's been a really good show. Hope you've been with us. And Woody is up next in Georgia. Hello, Woody.
Hi, Paul. How do you think the SEC will be during this season due to coronavirus?
Well, Woody, I think the stands will look different because they will limit, I think, the number of people that can go. I think there's some other aspects that will be different. I've heard a lot of conversation about concessions and the way we enter and leave. I think what happens on the field will be the same. I don't think it's going to change the quality of football. Do you?
It just depends, because if this thing keeps going, football couldn't even happen. Remember what Ohio State coach said? I mean, maybe the season gets shortened. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe.
So let me ask you a question. How old are you, and what grade are you in?
I am 11, and I am in 5th grade. And you met me once in Auburn once. So yeah.
Oh wow. So I'm interested. Woody, 5th grade was a cool grade for me. What was it like? What's it been like the last 7 weeks not going to school?
I've been sitting here in my living room and in front of a window, and I've just been sitting in my Zoom meetings, and I've just been sitting on the TV and relaxing and doing schoolwork. Wow.
When does school finally shut down for you?
Well, yeah, March 13th.
Okay. Are you doing the same with your friends in terms of Zooms, or can you see any of them?
Oh yeah, I can see them all. They're usually always on there at 9:00, and we do our classes, and yeah.
Okay. Well, stay in touch with us, Woody. I hope this all ends pretty soon. I guess in Georgia it's starting to slowly end, and maybe we can hopefully get back to normal. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Good to meet you that time down in Auburn. Sherry is in Charleston. You're on the air. Hey, Sherry.
Hey, Paul. This is a grandmother with an opinion about college athletes getting paid. And I understand that there has to be something different than the way it is at this point. However, they do get paid. As a mother putting kids through college and having to pay that tuition and pay that room and board without the look down the road, hoping to go into professional sports, they're getting paid. They're not getting spending money, but my kids didn't get much spending money either. That's a mother's opinion that when it comes out of your pocket, they are really getting paid.
Well, yeah. Listen, I would not argue your base point, but in terms of getting a return on what you heard Jeremy, what he believes and many others believe is rightfully theirs, it's a different equation. But yeah, I mean, I've always believed that players aren't coming out of this completely bare.
Well, I understand that the colleges are making a lot of money off of their image and off of their name, and I do believe that they need to be compensated at some point.
Well, I think we're finally to that point, and I thought he made a really good point too, Sherry, where I think it's not only going to be football and basketball. I think there are a lot of places where the softball team or the volleyball team or the gymnastics team are very popular and good, and I think you'll see more of a residual there as well. Thank you very much for the call. Charlie is up next. Hey, Charlie.
Hey, how you doing, sir?
We are doing great, thank you.
First time caller. I'm in Hayden, Alabama, and I just wanted to say back when you were in Birmingham years ago. I don't know where you're at right now, but I thought I saw you at a Mexican restaurant just off Oxmoor back in the day.
Right.
My wife and I were sitting there eating dinner, and I saw two guys sitting back in the corner chatting. And I thought, my wife, she said, "What are you looking at?" I said, "Well, back there in the back, there's two guys." I said, "It's either James Taylor or Paul Finebaum." And I said, more than likely it's Paul Finebaum. But back in the day, I read your column here in Birmingham every day, and I just really, really love the show. And I'm sitting outside grilling out some pork chop, and just wanted to give you a call, let you know.
Well, Charlie, thank you. I can attest that whatever we were talking about was not that important. And occasionally, I have had some people ask me if I'm James Taylor. I wish I could sing like James Taylor. But thanks for the kind words. I really appreciate that.
Well, if he ever needs a stand-in, you could put a hat on and stare at the camera really weird.
I might. I might put a little cap on and walk around the streets if I ever get out on the streets with a guitar around my neck, and I'll just start humming Fire and Rain. Hey, thank you for the call. I really do appreciate that. James is up next. Hey, James.
Paul, how you doing today?
Really, really well, thanks.
Paul, I have a question. I wonder, do you know any doctors?
A couple.
All right. I was listening to one this morning, and he shed some light on several ideas. Of course, that would be. Do you have a pen, Paul?
Yeah, I sure do. And,
all right, that's going to be Dr. Corsi, Corsi, the Corsi Nation. I think if you look into this guy, you'll find that some of what we've been told is not altogether on the up and up, as we say down here in Alabama.
Okay.
Have a nice day, brother.
I heard a minister in Georgia yesterday talk about a similar subject, but I don't know much about Dr. Corsi. I'm sure he's a very qualified doctor. He's not a medical doctor, though. He's a PhD, so I think I'll lean heavily on the medical doctor that is downstairs right now. Anyway, let's talk to Lynn, who is in Louisiana. Hello, Lynn.
What's going on, Paul?
We are doing great.
Man, I got a question for you. With this pandemic going on, what do you think the recruiting is like for the SEC, particularly LSU?
I don't think it's going to affect it too much. The only place I think recruiting is going to be affected, Lynn, and we've already seen it. A player from California was going to Clemson, and he said, "I don't want to be that far away." I think the long distance recruits could reconsider a little bit because they don't want to get stuck like some were here. But I don't think for a school like LSU it's going to really matter. I mean, LSU is on such an incredible roll right now nationally. Ed Orgeron is his perception has been elevated. I really think LSU is in great shape right now.
All right, let's go Tigers.
You got it, Lynn. You take care of yourself. Be well. We have 30 minutes to go, and love to hear from you at 855-242-7285. Back with much, much more.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
Welcome back to the program. Final 30 minutes on a Monday. Pope is up next. Hello, Pope.
Hey, Paul. What's going on, man?
We are doing great.
I wasn't going to bring up Jim, but real quick before I get to my two questions, he needs to be careful talking about the Bible as much as he calls people a fool. He needs to read up on it. But back to the jerseys and all, remember LeBron James mentioned that his name wasn't on the back, but everybody knew who wore that number. You're understanding, I feel like I would get a different answer if you was traveling from Mobile to Tuscaloosa. You'd be coming by my store. You couldn't help but to come by it. We were out in the parking lot talking, but nobody, there are teams that do not have the names on the back of the jersey, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, well, those people, how does that work?
I don't. There's not a steadfast rule. I think sometimes it's an individual or a school decision how to do that.
Yeah,
but,
do you agree that they might need to be careful on that if the name is not on the back of the jersey when there's multiple people wearing that number? There are families, and you can believe it or not, I'm telling you, that will sue if their son wears that same number without a name on the back. And the more high-profile player, they buy it because of him, that lesser player, I can guarantee you the family will sue.
Well, that's interesting.
You agree?
I have to admit, I've never thought about it until you mentioned it. I think it would be it would be a difficult lawsuit, though. I'll say that.
That's right. Yeah, but they'll try anyway, and I think that's a headache that.
I don't know what kind of grounds they would have. If you're the parent of a player that doesn't play and you happen to have the same, I'm not sure what your cause of action is going.
They would be on the team with that number, and they would say, "Who's to say that person didn't buy it?" But my thing is, I hope universities will, if it passes and goes through, I hope every university will keep a set number that doesn't have a name on it and just has Tigers or Tide or anything. And I'd love to see how many people bought that particular jersey and number in the stands and walking around versus the other ones. Just have one number on each team and just see how many people buy that because they don't like the rule.
Okay. Hey, thank you for the call. Ansley is up next. Hello, Ansley.
Hey, Paul. Long time no see.
Great to have you on.
But the radio's going great.
Thank you.
Enjoy watching it in this quarantine.
Well, we're hopefully getting out of it soon.
Great. Listen, I just turned the TV on just a minute ago, and a man was talking about how Stanford made average $80,000 and how that over a period of years would really add up. Well, I've watched, as compared to Michigan State, which I think is a good school, but I'm an Alabama man. But I didn't understand what his reason was, that it was a recruiting thing for to get more money to go to Stanford, because the courses that most of the athletes, and I say most, because I watch on TV when they have the scholar athlete, they're not engineers and aerospace and things like this. They've got a degree in something that's not underwater basket weaving, but something that the athletes get in to get through college and to stay qualified to play. And I didn't know whether I missed his point or just disagreed with his point.
Yeah, I mean, it was really a compelling point, but I kind of went along with him. I mean, I think he was trying to say that your degree could be worth more somewhere else. I'm not sure what that had to do with the NIL, but I think that's a given. A graduate of one school, very well. I mean, we're talking about average salaries too. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Right. I mean, and I is that undergraduate? Because it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's really hard to calculate. I mean, it sounded good, but I'm not big on numbers like that, Ansley. I think that they can be they can be very, very distorted.
Yeah, that's why I wondered why you didn't. That's why I called. Is I really wondered why you didn't say, "Hey, wait." But now I understand. Well,
I mean, I was kind of he did a good job. I was thinking, man, that really course of a lifetime. Then I started to think, first of all, a lot of people don't work for 35 or 40 years. You know, you may have one person in there that's done moderately well, and then you may have a billionaire in there.
Exactly. That was my thought, that a guy with a degree in business from Alabama goes out and starts his own business and makes a millionaire. That's not necessarily included in salary.
No. I think it's. I didn't really. I have to say I didn't really think about that. It was fairly just. But I really don't know what to make. I mean, there's no question Stanford's a really good school, but
I'm not arguing that point.
But I know a lot of multimillionaires. First of all, Bill Gates and Stephen Jobs are arguably two of the most successful entrepreneurs of the 20th century. One started Microsoft, the other one started Apple. They both ended up billionaires. One passed away. Neither graduated college.
Right. And Tiger Woods probably figures into the Stanford deal.
Yeah, he probably does. Hey, thank you. That's a great point. Appreciate it.
All right. God bless y'all and be safe.
You got it. You take care of yourself. Bye-bye. We're going to take a short break. Back with much, much more.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Geico gets you access to licensed agents 24/7, which means that Geico is always there for you. If only everyone was always there for you. Like your wife when you forget your keys at work.
Hey, hon, you get my texts? I am looking for the spare house key. Maybe I can get through the window. Turns out the alarm works. Wow, it works fast. You should probably call me back.
Geico, always there for you, with savings and 24/7 access to licensed agents.
We welcome you back. Mark is up next in North Carolina. Hello, Mark.
Hey, Paul. I have a quick question for you. I went to a D1 school that had the same play that had an NFL team there. So my question is, with the new sponsorships and law that the NCAA passed, how do you think that they would handle players using their likeness for free stuff that would now be considered like impermissible benefits, like, you know, they get free clothing or free workout gear, but not really money because they look good in it?
That's a good question. I don't think you'd be able to do it. I think the guidelines are going to be pretty strict in terms of you can make this by doing that. I don't think. I don't know. I'm sure they'll think about everything. Usually, when you do that you do. But I don't think you'll be able to trade guidelines. Thank you for the call. By the way, I'm starting to remember the call from the when Jeremy Bloom talked about it, I think he was saying in relation to Stanford. I know a lot of people, myself included, were confused. I think he was talking about an advantage that Stanford would have because of that statistic. Tim is up next. Hey, Tim, nice of you to call.
Hey, how you doing, Paul?
We are doing well.
Yes, well, I'm going to use this for pay the player an example. I'm from Ohio State fan. I live here in Alabama. How do you think these players are going to adjust as far as getting out on the field, knowing that, say, Justin Fields is in for a big endorsement or making a lot of money tomorrow, and I'm blocking for him, and he's making money, and I'm not? Do you think that's going to affect the game and the way the players play?
I wouldn't rule it out, would you?
No. I mean, you've got these kids that are, tomorrow morning he's going to wake up and endorse Joe Smith Chevrolet, and I'm not getting anything.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I do think that's an unintended or an intended consequence that doesn't really matter. I mean, we deal with it in every walk of life. No matter where you work, you're always wondering, why is that guy making what he's making? But I think because we've never really seen it before in a college situation, it could. You're talking about young, often immature players.
My next concern would be the team spirit about the game. Everybody's going to want to be seen with the ball and make their name and likeness worth more money. Do you think that'll also affect?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really quite a juggling act, Tim, for coaches to deal with this, and I'm not sure how easy it's going to be. Hey, thank you for the call. Trayvon is in Baton Rouge.
Hey, Paul. I am one of many photographers that covered LSU this past season, and when you were on campus for the Auburn game, I took an amazing photo of you and Brendan Fajoko's dad after he did the haka dance. Can you tell us about that moment?
Yeah, I was scared to death. So you're, I mean, all of a sudden, we had met him on the bus, and he was just a wonderful guy. And his wife was there too, I'm pretty sure. And all of a sudden, I think this was this when we were standing on the stage.
Yeah, you guys were standing on the stage, and
okay.
Right when he started screaming, you points back. But then afterwards, he hugged you, Marcus.
Yeah, I had seen him do it, obviously with his son, but he was literally standing right next to me, and all of a sudden he just he went into it, and I think I did jump back. I mean, you obviously got the picture, so
yeah.
It really I think. Being on live television, I should have been a little more aware of what was happening because I knew he was going to do it. But he scared me. He scared me to death.
For sure. It was an awesome.
What does the picture show?
The picture shows him hugging you.
Okay.
It was like a slight chest bump type of thing, but it's framed in my living room, and it's totally amazing. I love it.
Well, that is great. How long have you been a photographer?
I've been a photographer since 2013, but I've been covering LSU for 2 years.
What was I'll give you the easiest question you've ever been asked. What was this past year like?
I am still shocked, surprised, and awe, with everything that happened. I photographed a lot of the games, including the Texas game, for example. That was a great game, but I'm still in shock.
Well, I will tell you this, Trayvon, as someone who's covered sports for a long time, and you accumulate a lot of amazing memories of places you've been and events you've covered. But I witnessed a lot of what you did on a daily basis. But this will be a tough one to top, I promise you, because. But so the good news for you is you've got proof of it. You've got the pictures. So.
Oh yes.
Don't stop enjoying it. You'll have many other memories in your lifetime, but few will probably compare.
Absolutely. Thank you for that call, Paul.
Hey, great to hear from you. Thank you. PA is in Texas. PA, go right ahead.
Yeah, Paul, I just wanted to know what the implications or what the women are going to do as far as Title IX is concerned and the money that's going to be, how they're going to feel like they're not being promoted near as much They're going to feel like they're not making near as much money. And Title IX, I want to know what you think Title IX is going to do to this new idea of paying players.
Well, Title IX is something that started 50 years ago, and it essentially prohibits. It's federal law. It prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex. It relates to any sort of educational or federal allotment. Now, it goes much deeper. There's a cause of Title IX that involves sexual harassment. Now, the one thing I'm not a Supreme Court attorney here, and there's certainly a possibility that this could be tested, but I'm not sure what you're going to be able to claim as long as you're treated fairly on your team. And you're given the same rights, how are you going to then make a legal argument that because you're on the volleyball team at Clemson and Trevor Lawrence made $49,000 last year from name, image, and likeness, and you made $450,000, how that is a violation of Title IX?
Well, I'm just saying you're not going to be advertised near as much.
Right. But
everybody, Trevor Lawrence is going to be front and center, just like Tua would have been if he had stayed at Alabama. And, just the star player is always going to be front and center. He's going to have big pictures of him.
But Title IX primarily.
Look, I'm all for it. For it. I'm just saying. I know what women are going to. I know what the women are going to.
No, but I think the issue on Title IX, involves the university's relationship with its student. I don't know if it can be. I don't know how it could be applicable to. Although here, I'm going to change courses here. It is, since it is NCAA law, you're going to have to. Rule that the new name, image, and likeness provision violates your Title IX. I mean, I think it's a big hill to climb. I'm not saying someone out there is not going to try to do it, but I think it would be extremely difficult. That's my limited knowledge of constitutional law. We are going to break here for 20 hours. We've had a great time. We thank you for being a part of the show.
Thank you for listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast. The Paul Finebaum Show airs weekdays on the SEC Network, beginning at 3 Eastern.